Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Okay, hello. Welcome to our podcast where our mission is to help 1 million people improve their mindset around money. My name's Alex, I'll be your host. And today I'm talking with a friend of mine, also called Alex, Alex Fenn. So, Alex, if you could introduce yourself, who you are, kind of what you do, and why we've come together to form this podcast.
Hi everybody. I'm Alex Fenn, and I am by training I'm an accountant, and I'm also a chartered treasurer, and I currently work for one of the big tech firms in finance. But I'm also my big passion in life has always been personal finance, and a- as part of that, I probably for the last 5 years have been offering kind of personal finance coaching in my spare time just to help people with a variety of financial issues, whether that's just getting on top of money, to creating a budget, to trying to understand a bit more about investing. And I've also authored the book Financial Freedom, It's Easy When You Know How, which was a book which I wrote a couple of years ago and really was the foundation for a lot of my coaching work, but also is a book I wish I'd have read when I was a couple of, when I was just about to start my professional life. It would have been super handy to have all that in one place. I've spoken to Alex a few times on various topics, and we're both really passionate about personal finance, and we're both really wanting to improve the level of financial education in the UK. I speak from my own experience, and I certainly didn't get one. It was very much led by, a bit from my parents, and mainly was self-taught. And I think that's completely wrong. And you know, through this podcast and being able to, work together with Alex to get the message out there and covering topics from budgeting to retiring early to starting to invest to confronting a difficult financial situation to bringing on your partners and having good conversations about money with partners. So as well as looking at how you can improve, make more money, how you can cut down on your spending, and so hopefully you'll find these sessions really useful. And I know I can talk about these forever, and I know Alex can as well. But no, really keen and really happy to be here and part of this, and really excited to be helping as many people as possible, hopefully get into that millionth person as quickly as we can.
Yeah, so I don't know how we're going to track millions of people. Hopefully, we don't get a million emails in one go. That's Alex, that's who he is. Me, I'm a mental health nurse by profession. I'm also keen on finances as well. Whether you understand them or not, they'll impact you. The same with health. So I made it a kind of a thing of mine to learn about both, which took me down many rabbit holes. So I used to run a different podcast called FI UK or Financial Independence UK. Alex is one of the people who emailed me through that show, and he said, "Hey, do you want a copy of my book?" And I said, "Sure." So he very kindly posted me a copy of his book, and I read it, and I felt exactly the same way as him. Like I wish I'd had that knowledge and that book for reference when I first started working. I'd be in a much better position now if I knew those simple lessons at the right time. So this is our part of our desire and effort to bring that to people who need it. So if you're listening and you think, "Oh, my sibling, son, daughter, friend, cousin, whatever, might have some benefit from something like this," then do send it their way. The main thing here is we're going to blend money and mindset. So the mindset's more my thing. Money aspects, Alex is the expert on those. That's him, not me. Hopefully our voices sound different enough. But Alex, I wonder if you've said that you think the education in finance is not particularly good. I'll agree with you. I didn't have any financial education during school. A lot of it come from my parents who are avid savers. Didn't do anything about investments because investing is dangerous. That's the lessons I learned until I've changed my mindset on it. So, in my opinion, having a good management of your finances, it really gives you peace of mind, freedom of choice. It just gives you options. So over these sessions, we'll cover a wealth of kind of topics, and it's just about our conversations about money, how we think about it, how we act ourselves. It's not going to be financial advice. We're not regulated. We're just two people chatting about it. It'll morph into something, hopefully, when we get questions from people who listen. It'll branch out into all sorts of personal development, wealth creation, investing topics as well.
Just on your point, Alex, then around your parents being avid savers and very risk averse when it comes to investing, I got exactly the same lesson when I was young, and have definitely changed my mindset. But I think you raise a really good point on the impact on your mental health from having sound financial management. And I can say that personally, for having that safety net of an emergency fund built up, even just knowing where your money's coming in, where it's going out, quite a calming effect on you.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree. The amount of people I've seen with mental health issues or just troubles with their kind of thoughts and things, a lot of it's related to finances. I mean, look at what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years. We've lived for a global pandemic. The markets have crashed, they've rebounded, they've stayed stagnant. We've had all of investing kind of things in the last couple of years. And now we've got record levels of inflation and people are really feeling the pinch. So if we can provide some thoughts, kind of experiments to change people's thinking, to give them the tools that they need to weather these storms, we're hoping that it will hopefully reduce a lot of anxiety, help people feel a bit more in control of their finances, and hopefully as this message spreads, the level of uncertainty around finances will reduce. And I think, especially for the UK population at the moment, that'll be a much needed thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we lived through, as you said, the COVID pandemic, and the now with record inflation and quite a lot of uncertainty in the future around people's finances. So definitely, I think this can be a valuable resource for anybody. And I hope as well we can encourage people to start taking a look at their finances and dispelling the notion that it's really it's overly complex and it's overwhelming. I think when you start to talk and review your finances, and you start to really understand them, you certainly take away a lot of that anxiety, and you start to control your money. Your money stops controlling you. And quite often, and I have it, conversations with clients, and also with just friends and family, where it's a terrifying, you open the bank statement at the end of the month, and it's a bit of a mystery of what that number is going to look like.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, Alex, when I get the picture, like if you're an accountant, you've been interested in kind of money for a long time, are you just money through and through? Is that what you took as a degree, or has it been like a later change in life? Because I know we're weirdly with the same age, and we didn't know that when we first started talking. But has it always been a finance thing for you?
It has, yeah. So I did, well, I should say originally. So both my parents are actually are nurses, and I wanted to go into. I was encouraged to try and look to go into the medical field. Um, I am incredibly squeamish, and that was never for me. So I decided to, and I always had more of an interest in business and money than healthcare. So from probably a very young age, I would say maybe 14, 15, I would be reading kind of business books and money books, trying various different like mini businesses, like whether like selling chocolates at school, or I actually tried to start a t-shirt company, which didn't do very well. But so I've always tried to learn and tried to be involved in money in some way. I went to university and did do study finance. I did then went on to I did a master's after that, and that was also in finance, and then trained to be an accountant. So it has always been uh, kind of core to that the kind of money route. I think where I've had to really educate myself is similar to you, as you mentioned earlier, about your parents being very much savers, not investors. keep a cash pile and kind of live a frugal lifestyle. That was certainly my messages. I had to change and I think because of that, I've naturally been a saver, and I've naturally always kind of tried to live within my means. I had to change my mindset around investing, and I probably did like a lot of people do. I thought, I can try and beat the markets. I can a little, as a 16, 17-year-old, spending or investing my Saturday job money, buying and selling shares, which didn't pay off at all. So I started to do little things like that, and then it probably was I say my mid-20s. So I was probably a couple of years into my kind of accountancy training and my professional job that I started to really just focus on investing in index funds and trying to learn as much as I can about that kind of investment industry, and seeing those passive investment funds as the best way to kind of expose my money to the financial markets. And there's still been trial and error throughout that period in terms of choosing the correct providers and minimizing expenses. But by and large, and that was, I've read I'm a keen reader, and I try and read as much as I can. And reading books on investments, I probably read almost 100 on whether it's asset allocations, history of the stock market, ways to day trade. I've tried to just educate myself as much as I can, but it's always just been a passion of mine. And I think it's probably just comes from if you do it right and you're disciplined, you can have your money working for you rather than you having to ultimately work for money. And it's a the barriers to entry are very low. You can start investing from as little as about £100 a month for a lot of the big fund managers. You've got employer pension matches where you can get free money from your employer, and ultimately the more you take advantage of those, the more that your money is going to be working hard for you, and the more time you get back, or have the option to claw back if you want. And so that's a very long answer to it's always been about finance, and it's always been kind of interested in finance, and certainly investing. um I'd be keen to hear that the same for you, and how you went from the, I guess, very similar kind of upbringing to now you're very really keen and savvy investor.
Those are kind words about me being a savvy investor. I think they might be a bit unfounded, which will unravel at some point. Firstly, you didn't tell me both your parents were nurses at all. And also, it depends what type of nurses they are, I suppose, but all nurses are generally good people. I'm also a bit squeamish at blood, so I don't take any blood because I would literally faint, which if I was going to be a general nurse, I would not do well. I'm brain psychiatric for me. I also tried to start a t-shirt business. This is weird. Like, you could be me or I could be you. I tried to start a t-shirt business whilst I was at uni, just to bring in some extra money. I saw a jumper online with a deer print on it that I'd never seen before, and I was like, oh, maybe I could make that for myself. And you've read over 100 investment books. That's an awful lot. I'm nowhere near that total. I'm probably done about 20 at this point for a couple of years, but clearly you're the reader out of the two of us. I also, like you said, my parents come up with save, 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 and I've kind of thought about why that might be the case. But if I think about them, they're both born in the, sorry, mum and dad, but 50s, and they'll have gone through some times in like 87, I think, where inflation was up to 14%. Do jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. And also during midway through their careers, they've had the 2008 mortgage thing. So I think it does make people quite reserved. And if they learn from their parents, who quite possibly, I know my grandmother was a soldier in World War II, you very much make do and mend frugal lifestyle because there is no other option to it. But yeah, of all those kind of 100 books you've read, is there any kind of standout book that's a good entryway into investing? Because I know a lot of it can be quite niche, quite full of jargon. You need a lot of other knowledge to kind of figure it out. But have you got any one book you would give to a complete novice to pick up?
Yeah, it's a good question, and trying to find a balance of with investing books where it's you're able to get a good basic understanding, and it doesn't need as much kind of pre-reading. Some of there's a Financial Times guide to investing, which is very digestible, a couple of hundred pages long, but that's I found that a very useful guide. And I read that when I was probably about 15 years ago now, but that was one of the first books I read, which really helped me get a good grounding. There is also any book which is that introduction to the stock market type of books are really useful. I think then where the investing books start to get quite nuanced is they start looking at specific strategies or specific like asset allocations and portfolio, um, how to build specific portfolios, and a lot of them are, look at back testing them to make sure that what would the returns be under different market situations. So it does start to you go down a rabbit hole. I don't think you have to know any of that. That's more I read those because I'm just genuinely really interested in it. I think as long as you've got a good understanding of what the stock markets are, how the wider financial markets, so the stock markets, the bond markets, how the foreign exchange markets work, and how to access those. And if you almost understand that you're ultimately purchasing shares in a business, they're not price, and even though the prices are quoted, um, obviously within every 15 seconds they're updated. It's not you've ultimately got to get to the nub of what you're actually doing, and you're investing in companies and a share of very large, very successful businesses. And the plan should be to hold those businesses for a very, very long time. And by utilizing things such as index funds, you end up buying entire baskets um, of those companies. So there's no stock picking or anything. But I think to get any book which is kind of an introduction to, I say the Financial Times Guide to Investing was the first one that that sticks in my memory, which was a very good kind of grounding and a great book to get started.
Yeah, just on that, I've never heard of the Financial Times Guide to Investing, so I'll have a look at it. I was wondering whether halfway through that, have you ever read quite a newer book called Why the Stock Market Always Goes Up by a man called Brian Feroldi? Is that something that's crossed your path, or have you not heard of it before?
It has actually crossed my path. The Amazon algorithm has recommended it. I've not, so it's on my wish list, but I've yet to read it. It does look interesting, and yeah, I assume have you read it, and what were your thoughts?
No, I haven't. I've listened to the author speak on another podcast, and he just speaks really clearly about why things happen. So we might have in this episode used a bit of jargon that perhaps is difficult to understand. We'll break each of these topics down. We cover them in subsequent episodes. But Brian's got, he has obviously no idea who I am, by the way, at all. He doesn't even know I exist. He's not giving me any money for this whatsoever. I wish he would. Brian, if you're listening, email me. He breaks these topics down into really easy to understand concepts, and he explains what an index fund is, why you buy small slices of companies, and he really argues why it's a reasonable idea, and it's not so dark art, grey matter, really difficult to understand. He breaks all of these concepts down, so by the time you're finished or you're halfway through the book, you actually understand a bit more about what investing is and why over time stock markets generally tend to go up.
Sounds like I need to purchase that book. Sounds like really good, and I think it's a good point. In you really don't need to know the intricacies of a lot of investing theory. You just need to understand in the most fundamental way what you're doing, and the why it's important to be exposing your money to invest, or to be investing your money, certainly when you start looking at the long term and the future. And I think we'll definitely be need to have a couple of episodes on that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember when I first kind of exposed myself to that kind of knowledge, I had a bit of a light bulb moment. I was just sitting in my dining room and I was like, I'm the only way I can earn money. I have to work a job. I'm selling my time for money. Whereas a lot of these businesses, they sell products, they sell services, they're not selling hours of their time to get a return or to get paid. And when I realized that, and I realized my money could work for me as well, so I would be my main income earner, but my money could also generate me an income or a return. It was just like an explosion went off in my head, and I was like, why does nobody tell me this? I need to learn more about it. And that was, what was I, 30 at that point? I'm now 34, so it really embarked me on a 4 year learning thing to bring me where I am today. And I don't understand every intricacy of the stock market. I don't pretend to understand everything about making money work harder for you in terms of buying stocks, picking stocks, trading, anything like that. I've got a broad knowledge, but it's not very deep. But you don't need to know all of those things to be able to make a good return and to change your financial future. So that's one of the messages we're going to bring to you over the next couple of weeks. Alex, is there any particular episode that you perhaps want to bring sooner? I know we've talked about kind of budgeting and basics of investing and like reviewing expenses and things. We'll cover all of those things as well, just to make it as easy for you as possible. And there'll be links and tools underneath each episode with like extra resources and stuff. But my mind is generally we're going to cover those basic topics first so people get a good foundation, and then we'll build upon it as you and I have learned ourselves over time. We'll add some extra things about how people can use something like investing to their advantage. Anything in particular you want to bring?
I mean, I think that's a good agenda, and I think it's starting to build. It's building knowledge almost brick by brick. And I think what's important is to be talking really about the mindset, and I think that's the thing that's really important, because it's about looking at not just money differently, but is looking at the way that you live your life a bit differently, and how that can have a huge effect, a very huge positive effect on the way you accumulate wealth, the way you live your life, the way that you have relationships with other people. And I think I'd just like to make sure that that's a good theme throughout, is really about, and it is probably an underlying theme, and across every topic is going to be, it's changing that mindset. And I think your example of looking at, when you realize you're selling time for money, that time never comes back. You've lost yesterday's time, you've lost today's time, and it's the most valuable resource that we have. And for me, it's really about being really aware of that, and making sure that you can, leverage your investing, leverage businesses, and other ways that you can earn more money to basically help you live the life that you want to live, and maximize the use of time throughout uh, throughout the rest of your life. And I saw a really good. I think I was listening to a podcast, which there was a, there's the investing term on return on investment, and this chap had his own metric, which was ROH, or return on heartbeats, which I thought was a really nice way of thinking and looking at life. It's what are you doing with all of your time? And I think that a lot of the purpose here is really to educate people on financials, but also it's about that mindset, and making sure that we're all living the life that we want to live, and we're living it to the fullest, because we've only got a very short amount of time kind of on planet Earth. So let's make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key terms that I've been thinking about whilst you've been talking, especially then, is having confidence with money, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. And if you can feel confident in what you're doing, that will spread into every aspect of your life. Money can either make you or it can break you in those simple terms. And it can lead to many different kind of mental health issues, which we'll touch on as well. I think that'll do. I think we've laid the first brick of many as we build this financial house and podcast up. So if you have any thoughts or questions or topics you want Alex and I to cover, bear in mind he's more money focused, I'm more mind, but we'll do our best to answer questions and things as well if you email them in, and our email address will be below this episode. Alex, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think I think we've covered everything, and yeah, they're really keen to hear any ideas for any topics. Nothing's off the table, I don't think. So yeah, really keen to get cracking.
Definitely. So if you have any thoughts or questions, you can email us at nursingyourwaytowealth@gmail.com. And that'll do. Until next time. None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.